Thank you for joining us today. Can you tell us about your background before your near-death experience? Of course. My name is Lisa Matthews. I'm 60 years old, and I was living what I thought was a pretty ordinary life. I've been married to my husband, Tom, for 30 years, and we have 3 wonderful kids who are the light of my life. We lived in a cozy house with a white picket fence, the kind of life that looks perfect from the outside. However, I had drifted away from my faith. Growing up, I was in a Christian household, attending church on holidays, but as I went to college, faith sort of faded into the background. I was caught up in the hustle of life, balancing work and family, and all the everyday challenges. I found I didn't make much time for God anymore. What led to the moment where you left your body? Could you take us through what happened leading up to your near-death experience? It all started with a routine surgery. I had developed gallbladder issues, and the doctor assured me it was a straightforward procedure. I remember sitting in the waiting room, feeling a mix of nerves and relief, nerves because I had never been under anesthesia before, and relief because I was hopeful it would end the discomfort I had been experiencing. After the surgery, I thought everything was fine. I was back home and felt a bit sore, but I expected that. A couple of days later, everything changed. I began to feel really off. It was subtle at first, just a nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach that something wasn't right. Then, I noticed my skin was covered in hives. I had never experienced an allergic reaction before, so I brushed it off. But soon, my throat began to close up, and I could feel panic rising in me. My heart was racing like it was trying to escape my chest. I remember looking at my husband, Tom, trying to speak but only managing to choke out, "Call 911. Before I could comprehend what was happening, everything went dark. So you went into anaphylactic shock? Yes, exactly. My husband told me later that the paramedics arrived within minutes. I can still picture him pacing anxiously in the hallway, his face a mask of fear and worry. The paramedics worked frantically to stabilize me. They must have been incredibly skilled, but at that moment, I was completely unaware. I was rushed to the hospital, and by the time we got there, my heart had stopped. That's when I died, at least clinically. Wow! What was your experience in those moments when you were physically dead? It was surreal. I remember the moment I left my body. One minute, I was struggling to breathe, filled with fear and confusion, and the next, I felt this incredible sense of peace wash over me. It's hard to explain, but imagine waking up from a nightmare and realizing you're safe. It was a relief so profound that it enveloped me like a warm blanket. I found myself floating above the hospital room, observing the chaos below. I could see the doctors and nurses working urgently, their faces etched with concentration, while my husband paced anxiously in the hallway. I watched everything but felt utterly disconnected from it all, as if I were a spectator rather than a participant in my own life. The weight of my fears and the urgency of the situation melted away, replaced by an all-consuming tranquility. What happened next? After floating above the room for what felt like just a few seconds, I was suddenly pulled away. It was as if a gentle force was calling me, and the hospital room dissolved around me. I didn't feel scared or confused. Instead, I felt a deep sense of love pulling me in. I found myself standing in a place of pure light. It wasn't blinding or harsh. Instead, it was a soft, warm glow that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The air felt thick with love, and I felt completely embraced, like every fear, worry, or pain I had ever felt was washed away. I can't find words strong enough to describe the feeling of being there. It was more than peace, it was pure love, an overwhelming sense of belonging that I had never experienced before. And then, I saw him, Jesus. You saw Jesus? Could you describe him? Yes, I did. He stood just a few feet in front of me. The first thing that struck me was his presence. It was both overwhelming and comforting at the same time. His face radiated so much love and compassion. I felt as though I were gazing into the very essence of kindness itself. Yet, there was also a strength in him, a profound authority that seemed to reverberate through everything around us. He didn't look like the images we often see in paintings. Instead, he had a glow about him, a brilliance that wasn't blinding but inviting. His eyes were particularly striking. They held an eternity of wisdom and love, but also a seriousness that conveyed the importance of what was to come. When our eyes met, it felt like he could see directly into my soul. What did he say to you? He spoke directly to my heart. I didn't even need to hear the words as we think of talking. His voice was more like a whisper that resonated within me, a deep understanding that transcended language. He said, "It is not your time yet. You must return, but first, there is something you need to know and something you must share." Did you know what he meant by that? Did he explain what it was that he needed you to share? At first, I didn't understand. I longed to stay with him. Being there, in his presence, was more peaceful and joyful than anything I had ever experienced. I wanted to bask in that love forever, but Jesus was firm yet gentle. At that moment, Jesus extended his hand, inviting me to follow him. I felt an urge to take his hand, and when I did, I was enveloped in a warmth that was indescribable. We began to move together, and I felt like I was gliding through a vast expanse of light. Then, Jesus led me to a place that felt heavy and dark. As we approached, I realized it was hell. I was struck by the stark contrast to the light we had just left. The cries and wails of anguish were deafening, and I could feel the despair in the air. "Why are we here?" I asked, trembling at the sight before me. How did Jesus respond? He looked at me with compassion. "You need to understand the consequences of turning away from God," he replied gently. I watched as souls were tormented, their faces filled with regret and sorrow. It was a scene I would never forget, a reminder of the choices we make in life and the importance of turning to God for forgiveness and love. Then, Jesus guided me further, and we rose to a place that was indescribably beautiful, heaven. The colors were more vibrant than anything I had ever seen on earth. There were magnificent gardens, crystal-clear rivers, and angels singing in harmony. I felt an overwhelming sense of joy and love enveloping me. What did Jesus say about heaven? "Here is where your spirit belongs," Jesus said. "This is what awaits those who choose to follow me." I felt a deep longing to stay, but then I was brought to another place, standing before God the Father. His presence was awe-inspiring, and I could feel the love radiating from him. It was overwhelming, and I felt like I was enveloped in pure, divine love. "What did God the Father say to you?" "Your mission is crucial," he spoke to me, his voice echoing in my heart. "You must carry this message back to the world. It is time for my children to awaken." After that moment, Jesus and I were surrounded by a brilliant light, and I felt the Holy Spirit enveloping us. The love and peace I felt were indescribable. I understood the unity between Jesus, God the Father, and the Holy Spirit, how they were all one, working together to guide us back to love and truth. Then, Jesus said, "Now, let me show you what's coming." That's when he showed me a vision. A vision? What did you see? It was like I was taken to a different place, but still connected to the world. I was shown a man rising to power quickly. At first, I didn't understand who he was. He didn't look like the monster or villain you'd expect from stories. Instead, he was charismatic and charming, well-loved by everyone around him. I could see the excitement in the crowd, their faces lit with hope as they cheered for him, as if he were a messiah sent to save them from despair. What specific qualities did he possess that drew people to him? His charisma was almost supernatural. He had this uncanny ability to connect with people on a personal level, making each individual feel like they were the most important person in the room. His speeches were filled with promises of hope and transformation. Yet, I felt a chill in the air, a sense that something wasn't quite right. The excitement was contagious, but beneath it lay an unsettling current, as if the crowd was being hypnotized by his words. But then, Jesus said to me, "This is the one they will call the Antichrist. He is here, and he is deceiving the world, but they do not see it yet." The weight of those words settled into my heart like a heavy stone. The Antichrist? That's chilling. What else did Jesus show you about this man? Jesus allowed me to see deeper, beyond the surface. This man wasn't just a political figure or leader. He had a darkness inside him that belied his charming exterior. He came in the name of peace, promising solutions to global problems, and many would follow him, believing he was the answer to their prayers. But behind his charm and promises was a plan of destruction, a sinister agenda that was masked by his benevolence. I saw him making deals with other powerful leaders, pulling nations together under his influence. There was a particular focus on the Middle East, where tensions had always been high. I witnessed a scene where he was at the forefront of negotiations, particularly concerning Israel. I saw the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem. It was both awe-inspiring and terrifying, as if the fulfillment of ancient prophecies was unfolding right before my eyes. That aligns with some biblical prophecies. Did Jesus explain why the world wouldn't recognize this man for who he really is? Yes. Jesus said that people are blinded by their desires and fears. The world will be in turmoil, natural disasters, economic collapse, wars, and in that chaos, this man will seem like a savior. He will offer what looks like peace and stability, but it's a trap. It's temporary, and it's meant to deceive the masses. He told me, "He will come in my name, but his heart is set on destruction." As I reflected on this, a terrifying thought crept in. What if people were not just oblivious but actively complicit in their own deception? What if their longing for a savior blinded them to the truth? That's a terrifying notion. How does this Antichrist manipulate the people and the nations? He utilizes fear and confusion to his advantage. In times of crisis, people often turn to someone who offers certainty. This man presents himself as the only one capable of restoring order and bringing about peace, which makes him irresistible. I saw him orchestrating media campaigns that painted him as a hero, someone who had the vision to lead humanity into a new era. But behind that facade, there was an agenda that sought to undermine true faith and love. Did you see any specific events that demonstrated his manipulations? Yes, there was a pivotal moment in the vision when I saw him addressing a massive crowd, promising to eliminate poverty and hunger. He unveiled a new initiative that seemed revolutionary, using technology to control resources and distribute aid. It was hailed as a miracle, a solution to the world's ills. Yet, as he spoke, I could see shadowy figures behind him, pulling strings like puppeteers. They were the true power players, ensuring that his rise served their dark purposes. In the midst of this grand announcement, something truly horrifying unfolded. I saw people who resisted him, voices of dissent, and they began to disappear. Friends and families were torn apart as fear and paranoia spread. Those who questioned him were branded as traitors, and whispers of a new regime silencing opposition echoed in the background. It was a chilling reminder of how easily fear could turn allies into enemies. That's chilling and disturbing. It sounds like he instills fear not just in the general populace but also among leaders. Exactly. He thrives on the chaos he creates. I witnessed leaders who once stood strong against tyranny bending the knee to him, realizing too late that their power was being co-opted. He held secrets over them, using blackmail and intimidation to ensure their loyalty. As alliances shifted and loyalties crumbled, the world plunged further into darkness, with him at the center, cloaked in the illusion of light. That's terrifying. Yes, it was terrifying. As I absorbed this revelation, I felt a mix of fear and urgency. Jesus told me that my experience was not just for me but for everyone. He wanted me to warn people, to share what I had seen so that they wouldn't be caught unaware. The weight of that responsibility hung heavily on me, but I felt empowered by his presence. What did he instruct you to do when you returned? He told me, "You must tell your story. You will share this message of love and warning. People need to be vigilant, they need to turn back to faith and be prepared for what is to come." He emphasized the importance of prayer and remaining close to God, especially in the times we live in. As he spoke, I felt as if I were absorbing his energy, the truth of his words wrapping around my heart. It was like each sentence he uttered was woven with threads of divine purpose. I understood that this wasn't just a momentary experience, it was a call to action. What was your emotional state during this encounter? How did you feel being entrusted with such a significant message? At first, I felt a sense of dread. The enormity of the message was almost too much to bear. But Jesus' love soothed my fears. I felt a peace that I can't describe, like a light shining through darkness. It was as if he were saying, "You're not alone in this, I will guide you." In that moment, I understood that while the message was heavy, it was also filled with hope. Jesus' love is so powerful that even amidst chaos and fear, there is light. I realized that warning others is an act of love, a way to guide them back to safety in God. That sounds so profound. Did you see anything else during your experience? Yes, after the vision of the Antichrist, I saw a multitude of souls, people from all walks of life. They were standing in various places, and I could sense their longing and hope. Jesus showed me that many people are searching for truth but are lost in deception. I felt their pain, their hunger for connection, and their desperation for something real. Then, Jesus turned to me and said, "You must help them understand that I am the way, the truth, and the life. It is in knowing me that they will find peace." I was filled with this overwhelming love and compassion for them. I wished I could reach out to each one and let them know they are not alone. That must have been incredibly moving. Did you feel like you learned something about your own purpose during this experience? Absolutely. I realized that my life had been leading up to this moment, though I had been blind to it. My struggles with faith, my challenges as a mother, my worries about the future, they were all part of preparing me for this mission. I felt Jesus telling me that my journey wasn't in vain and that I had a voice that could impact others. He encouraged me to share my story, to be open about my struggles and the love I experienced in that moment. It was a reminder that everyone has a purpose, and mine was now tied to sharing the truth about Jesus and the deception in the world. How did you feel when it was time to return to your body? As the moment approached, I felt a mix of sadness and determination. I didn't want to leave that place of love and light, but I also felt a strong sense of responsibility. Jesus told me, "Go back. You have much to do," and I knew I couldn't argue with him. His authority was absolute, but it was laced with love. Suddenly, I was being drawn back to my body. The transition was jarring. I felt a sharp tug, and then I gasped as I returned. I remember feeling cold and disoriented, struggling to grasp what had just happened. I could hear the beeping of machines and the voices of doctors as I was brought back into consciousness. What was your first reaction when you woke up? I was overwhelmed. I felt like I had been asleep for years. Everything seemed so vivid and real, yet I couldn't shake off the feeling that I had left something important behind. I looked around the hospital room, taking in the sterile walls and fluorescent lights. And then, I saw Tom. His eyes were filled with tears of relief, and I could see how worried he had been. What did you say to him? I could barely find the words at first. I remember reaching for his hand and whispering, "I'm back." He squeezed my hand tightly, and I could see the weight of relief lift from his shoulders. But I also felt a surge of urgency. I needed to share everything I had experienced. I tried to explain what had happened, but it was difficult. I felt so different now. The emotions were overwhelming, and I realized that I had to process everything before I could share it fully. How did you go about sharing your experience with others? It took time. I started with my family, telling them the story in bits and pieces. I could see their skepticism at first. They wanted to believe me but struggled to comprehend the depths of what I had experienced. I then began writing it all down. One night, I sat in my living room, surrounded by notes and thoughts swirling in my mind. I wrote for hours, pouring out every detail, every feeling. It felt cathartic, as if I were bringing light to something that had been locked away in the shadows of my heart. How was your experience received? It varied. Some people were deeply moved. They felt a connection to my story, and it sparked conversations about faith and spirituality. Others were more skeptical, questioning how I could know such things. I learned to be patient with those responses. I had to remind myself that not everyone would understand, just as I had been blind to my own faith journey before my experience. Have you seen any changes in your life since your experience? Yes, profoundly. I've become much more spiritually aware and actively involved in my church. I lead discussions about faith and spirituality, and I often share my story in small groups. It has ignited a passion in me to help others discover their purpose, and I find myself encouraging them to reconnect with their faith. I also started volunteering with local charities, helping those who are lost or in need. I feel like it's part of my mission now, to show others that love and kindness can change lives. That's truly inspiring. What message would you want to leave with our viewers today? I want everyone to know that they are loved beyond measure. In these uncertain times, it's crucial to stay connected to faith and to God. Don't be afraid to seek the truth. Be aware of the world around you and remember to stay grounded in love and kindness. And if you feel lost, know that it's okay to seek help. Reach out to those who can support you on your journey. We are all in this together, and there is hope even in the darkest moments. Thank you so much for sharing your powerful testimony. Your story is a reminder of the importance of faith, love, and vigilance in today's world. I'm sure it will resonate with many of our viewers. Thank you for allowing me to share. It's my hope that through this experience, others will find the courage to connect with their faith and help spread love in a world that desperately needs it.